All right, folks, on today's video, I want to show you my Limelight Hydrangeas and exactly how to propagate these. It is May the 23rd, so just think we're kind of late spring now. I'm in zone 7, and this is about the size these Limelights have grown to so far. They started out about this tall, cut them all the way down to the ground in the winter, so they put on 3, maybe 4 feet of growth, and it is time to propagate these things. And the Limelight is a highly sought after hydrangea, and rightly so. They're absolutely beautiful in their summer blooms, and we're going to take some cuttings off of these today. I'm going to show you exactly how to propagate these. Now, when you're trying to propagate your own plants in your own nursery, this is one of the awesome things about having these plants actually growing in your own landscape. Now, I'm not going to prune these all the way down to nothing for the sake of cuttings. I'm going to take just enough out to suit my own needs for cuttings, but otherwise these are just going to sit here and bloom and be beautiful and awesome all summer long, and they'll be setting buds in no time. But for today on this video, I want to show you why a hydrangea like Limelight, which is in the Paniculata family of hydrangeas, why this is a must-have plant for your yard, but also, and even more specifically, for your nursery. So I'm going to start with this particular plant today, and I'm going to get one of these cuttings off the back. And the reason I'm going to get it off the back is because I don't want to completely destroy these. They're too pretty to just completely destroy, and I got plenty of material here to take all the cuttings I want. But I'm going to get down kind of deep down in here and take one of these cuttings and show you what it looks like. So why don't you see if you can try to video this. You're not going to be able to see this perfect because I'm going to have to get kind of up in here to do this, but let's see. I'm going to come way down in here towards the bottom of one of these tall canes. I call them canes, cuttings, whatever you want to call them, and cut that. And here's what you need to see about this. This is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 cuttings. So imagine turning that one cutting from one Limelight into 8 potential plants. Now, if you look at that idea and multiply that times all of these cuttings that you could have down here, I don't know what that would add up to. There's several dozen of these in each one of these shrubs. So you're talking hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more cuttings that you could get from your own plants just by having 2 or 3 or 4 of them in your own yard. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this. Now, we've come over to our work table, and I brought the cutting with me, same one that I just cut, and I want to show you how I do this. Now, if you'll come in close, I want to give you a close look at this. Now, what happens is through the growing season, now again, we're just late spring now, going into very early summer, and I don't know if you can even quite see that or not, but you can see there's a slight brown happening right here on this part of the cutting. And this is just where the wood is beginning to harden up. This is this season's growth. All this was put on this year, but this part of it now, having been there for 2 or 3 months, is already starting to harden off. And as you work your way up the stem here, you can see that there's less and less of that. And by the time you get up to about the 3rd section here, there is no brown on this whatsoever, and this is all green. Well, you can take these cuttings really any time of the growing season, from now all the way through summer. And as long as this part down here isn't overly brown, this is about as brown as you want it to be, these are going to root just fine for you. Okay, so I'm going to take this cutting and show you exactly how to do it on a Limelight. But you really can do any hydrangea this way. I just want to particularly show you the Limelights, a Paniculata hydrangea, because these are so common, so popular, and you got to have them in your nursery. So come in here, get a good tight shot on this, and what you do is, this is where I cut it loose from the plant right here at my fingertips. I'm going to come right above this bud break or leaf node, whatever you call this. I'm just going to come up above that a little bit and cut that off. Whoops. And that is going to be my first cutting. Now, I'll show you more about that in just a moment. Okay, the next one that we see here, so I think this is a little long here, but when I say it's a little long, don't worry exactly about the length of this. It just needs to be long enough to fit in your medium good. So whatever you're propagating these in, if you've got an end way out to here, it's just going to make your cutting a little bit excessively long. So I'm going to come right above that and cut it. Same thing on this one. I'm just going to snip off some of that excess there. That's just trash. And then that will be the next cutting. And we'll snip off that excess and come right above that leaf node, and that will be your next cutting. You snip off the excess. Right above the leaf node is your next cutting, and you do just do that right on up the stem. Just keep cutting it. You get up here to the top. This is really green here. Let's move some of that over. This is really, really fresh growth here out towards the tip, and this is getting a little bit flimsy. And I really don't know for sure how this is going to do, but I'm going to take this. I'll see. I'll cut it, let's say right there. That'll be my next to last one. And on this tip cutting, we'll just call this a tip cutting. We're going to snip these 3 leaves off right here, and that will be the tip cutting for there. So let's see how many cuttings this gave us from this one branch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 cuttings there off of that one branch, and I'm going to show you how to stick these into your plug trays and how to make plugs and get these stuck in your media to get these ready to go under the mist for propagation. Now, what I use to make my plug mixture to propagate my plants in is just Miracle-Gro potting soil. Now, I don't really care for Miracle-Gro potting soil, but I'm not really using it as a potting soil. I'm using it to make plugs with. So I just dump some in my wheelbarrow here. I don't know how much, however much you think you need for how many plants you have to propagate. And that looks to me like about enough, and it's just kind of the bottom of the wheelbarrow full. And I like to take some of my pine bark that I use for everything and mix in with it. And maybe, you know, it's maybe a little bit more than half Miracle-Gro and maybe say 40% or something like that pine bark. It's not that important. And listen, guys, I'll just tell y'all that I don't really recommend that y'all doing it this way. This is not professional. This is, guys, it's just what I do. But that Miracle-Gro has enough peat moss, perlite, and those types of things in it, mixed with the pine bark. It just makes a pretty good mixture. So I use it, and I've had pretty good luck with it. So I'm just going to mix that Miracle-Gro and pine bark. Just mix those up. Mix them. You want to mix them pretty good. You don't want some of your plugs to wind up being pure pine bark, or they're going to be way too dry. So, all right, should be good. So now, having mixed that up, I just scoop it out. Take my plug tray here. This is a 50 count tray. It seems to be a really good size to do hydrangeas with. You can do them larger, you can do them smaller, but I like the 50 count. And just spread it out in your tray and fill every one of those little cells in. So just spread it all the way over, all the way back. All right. I like to lightly compact each one of those. You don't have to do it real tight, just enough to kind of compress that media just a little so it's not quite so fluffy. If you see any large splinters in here, you can toss those out. If you have any extra laying around, you can pile it back up to kind of smooth back over. Need just a little bit more there to smooth all of that over so those plugs are nice and full. So every cell is nice and full. You get those cells nice and full, you'll have nice big full plugs when you get these things grown, and you'll be happier with it. But as you can see, that only takes a minute or two to get all that fixed. Really nothing to it. Kind of smooth it off, and then I'm going to soak all this down just to settle the potting media really good. Once I've got my tray filled up and I've got it soaked in with water, I like to just poke a hole right in the center. I do that with a screwdriver. You can use a stick, you can use your finger, you can use whatever you have, but it just takes a minute to poke your 50 holes in. Yeah, just remember, I mentioned this, you know, you could probably get away with a smaller plug tray doing it with a 72 count, or if you want to use a bigger one, you can use a 32 count, 38 count, whatever. This is just what I use. It seems to work fine, and it seems to make a good number of hydrangea plugs in a pretty decent area. Getting 50 baby plants, and they won't all root. I mean, 30 or 40 of them will root. I haven't figured out yet how to go 50 for 50. Probably never will, but you're talking about less than 2 square feet of space here in this entire plug tray, and be able to produce a pretty good number of plugs in that space is pretty cool. And the next thing I'm going to do is take these leaves and just clip those off, just so there's not so much leaf material there. Remember, there's no roots on this cutting, So they don't need to be trying to support these big giant leaves when they have no roots at all. So I just cut those off like that, off of each one of them. And you know, you need to move kind of quick with this if you're working on a sunny day, because these things will wilt on you really quick, and you don't want them to start wilting on you. And if you need to work faster than that, or if you're not a particular fast worker doing this, as soon as you take these cuttings off of their stems, you can throw them in a bucket of water or something like that if you want to, until you're ready to stick them into the plug tray. So I just cut all these off, and there's the tip cutting. And then we're going to come along here. We'll take these and just stick them right into these little holes we made, one by one. And just kind of compress around them a little bit. You don't have to press it down hard. Just make it, you know, so there's not air pockets around that little stem. And just fill them in. And when I get done with this, I'm going to go out to the plant in my front yard again, back out to the hydrangea. I'm going to take another long cutting, cut it up, and come repeat the process and do this until my plug tray is full. Now on these hydrangeas, I'm about to fill this tray up with them, but something I've been asked several times before, and people don't seem to think this is possible, but I only cut these with just this single node at the top where these leaves are at the top, and I don't have a second node at the bottom. And hydrangeas you can do this with. You may be able to do it with other plants, but some plants you can't. But hydrangeas will root as single node cutting, so that's something that's worth knowing. And the good thing about that is that means with the same amount of material, with plant material, you can do twice as many when you only have to do it with one node instead of 2 or 3 like some plants are. So just worth mentioning as I fill the plug tray up. So I got that plug tray filled up with 50 hydrangea cuttings, and I'm just going to soak them in one more time to have them completely well watered, and that potting media, that plug media, completely compacted in there so it's nice and firm. And now they're ready to go into the mist. All right, then I'm going to take the tray of cuttings and put them right down here in my propagation area. And this is just a little area I made just to help it be weed free. And when I sit it under here, when I put these cuttings down here, there's a mist that will spray on these throughout the day from about 9 a.m. till about 5 p.m. And that's just kind of once the sun gets up and gets hot, and it'll spray on them about 10 seconds every 10 minutes. And that will vary a little bit. I'll adjust that timing, because you don't want to just keep your cuttings soaked. You just want to keep them from drying out throughout the heat of the day. And in about 4 to 6 weeks, something like that, they will take root. They need some kind of shade over them. This is just a shade cloth that I've laid over the top of this, but you can use the shade of a heavily leafed tree of some sort. You can use that as your shade. You can use the shade from the side of your house or from a lean-to or something like that. But this is a way that you can propagate hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of hydrangea cuttings like this, and it works with virtually any kind of hydrangeas, oak leaf hydrangeas, macrophyllus, arborescens, any kind of hydrangeas. And the Limelight is one that, since it came off patent last year, it's a can't miss hydrangea. It's beautiful, super popular, very hardy, and people absolutely love these things. All right, guys, so this is it today, but I'm gonna link a playlist right here that's got more information, my videos on propagating hydrangeas that we made last year, and very similar to what we did this year, but I just kind of wanted to update it, and if you haven't seen this, to show you again. But I appreciate y'all watching these videos every week. I love y'all, and I hope you're having a great day.